Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Michael Finney. Today I am joined by author Shami Stovall. Would you like to say hello?
Hello. My name is Shami Stovall, and I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, cool. Let's get into it. Where are you from? Who are you? Any interesting biographical background information to introduce you to listeners and me? This is the first time we've talked.
Well, my mom told me not to speak to strangers, so I'm Josh.
Well, here you are wandering around on the internet, aren't you?
Yeah, God, the internet. Um, but in all seriousness, I guess I was born in Utah, and then I moved to California, and then I moved to Kansas, and that's where I now reside. Um, I lived in California for quite some time and was an attorney and a professor of history and law there. But California is a dumpster fire, so I had to move out of there. I now am in Kansas, and I'm just an author. That's all I do now. And I write science fiction, fantasy, and lit RPG, and it's great. And I high five people in the tornadoes, and everything's going amazingly.
Awesome. Let's go back to the beginning. We heard about a law career, we heard about teaching, but where did you fall in love with the written word or even perhaps writing? Uh, maybe that was in service to reading. Maybe you were doing other things that were connecting those. Anything.
We need that deep lore, right?
Yeah, we want to get. We want to dig through the deep history.
Oh, geez. So the thing that got me in love with reading was The Island of the Blue Dolphins, which was a required reading book in elementary school. But the premise of the book is girl gets left alone on island and lives there for 20 years by herself. And so she has to do a bunch of crazy stuff like train wild dogs and drag some whale bones up from the beach to make her house and all this other kind of bullshit. Um, but it really blew my mind as a kid. I had never thought about, like, what if you were stranded on an island and had to live there all by yourself? And so it really got me thinking about other stuff. I got really into old science fiction when I was in high school because I got a really old anthology book. It was fat tome full of like 1950s sci-fi. And 1950s sci-fi is all about people who have psychic powers. It's great. And then I read things like Dune and a bunch of books like that. And I got really into science fiction. In high school, I also met some people that started me on the Dungeons and Dragons path. And that's when I started DMing. And I would write my own scenarios as the DM because I hated all of the made like modules that Dungeons and Dragons had. And a lot of the players told me that I was the best DM ever. The stories were great. The characters were great. They had never played games like that. And so a lot of them just encouraged me to write books because I had a knack and a flair for it. So that's how I got onto that. So I was in love with books way earlier before I was in love with writing, but I really just like stories, characters, really fun stuff.
Yeah, very cool. I'm hearing a lot of people kind of finding the overlap between tabletop gaming and storytelling. Part of it as players, but then oftentimes as people that are running the games and kind of developing these narrative arcs for all the other players to work through, and basically then taking that stuff and turning it into short stories and novels. The lit RPG thing is pretty new for me. I'm not familiar. I haven't really read a whole lot of that, or the progression stuff. That was also a new term that I learned kind of recently. I'm a new fiction writer myself. I don't have a lot of experience.
Oh well, they're fun genres, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you haven't given them a try, oh god, you should totally give them a try because they're amazing. They're my favorite, probably my favorite right now. Everybody's so passionate in those genres.
What is keeping your attention on them?
Oh, so I'm also a really big video gamer just in general. And the best part about progression fantasy lit RPG, at least from my standpoint, is the level up, the numbers go burr, the constantly getting stronger. If you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z is like my favorite anime of all time. It's ever escalating fights.
I actually have not.
You've never seen Dragon Ball Z? Oh no.
No, I know a couple of the characters, but
Interview over.
Well, it's been nice.
Yeah, but so the reason that I like them is just so I guess since you've never seen it, I'm going to give you just a quick rundown. Mind you that I'm being a little bit facetious, but main character has to fight a guy who's about to destroy his city, so he's got to whoop this guy's ass because he doesn't want his city destroyed. And then the next bad guy shows up, and this bad guy is so strong that he can annihilate an entire continent with his magic powers. And so main character is like, okay, I got to beat this guy up because I like my continent. And then the next guy shows up, bad guy, and he can destroy planets. That's how strong he is. So the main character is going to get strong enough to beat that guy, right? And then the next guy shows up, and he's strong enough to destroy entire universes. So the main character's got to get strong enough to beat this guy up. And then the next guy shows up, and he's like a god, and he can erase reality. So the fucking main character's got to be a god, and he's got to be strong enough to beat this guy because he likes reality. This ever escalating fights, the anime slash book slash series, is fun, I guess. I mean, a lot of people like it. It's not just me, but sometimes I do feel like a weirdo when I'm like, man, I really love it when we get to defeat God. But there are a lot of plot lines end with, and then you defeated God. So that's fun. I guess it's always just fun to imagine that if you just try really hard enough, you can do whatever the hell you want. And that's what a lot of progression fantasy and lit RPG is all about.
That's what a lot of storytelling's all about, right?
Oh, not really. I guess the key difference is that the getting stronger, getting more powerful is a huge player of the story. So in Harry Potter, while he does learn spells, it's not really about like learning the ultimate spell or making his spells so powerful that nobody can defeat his spells. Harry Potter just learns some spells. They're the same spells everybody else learns, and there's not even really a clever use of his spells. It's just using them like you would anybody else uses them. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, it might be even negative clever because there are a couple spells in Harry Potter that are things like you can transmutate one object to another. And with that, you could probably do some really clever fucking bullshit. But I mean, we never do. Like the series doesn't explore that, not even a little bit, except for some people turn into animals. And you're like, oh, okay. But, nobody turns like their clothes into uranium to kill everybody in the room. Does that make any sense?
Well, to clarify, I meant that writers can do whatever they want.
Oh, yes, writers. Sorry, I was trying to differentiate what makes progression fantasy lit RPG different than like normal fantasy that might also have magical powers and fight scenes.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, don't sweat it. That's okay. It's a conversation. We're allowed to go in all kinds of directions. And the next direction we're going to go is about your influences, who you were reading, maybe stuff that led you into other particulars. And I know you mentioned 1950s sci-fi. When I start to hear that era, I gravitate very rapidly towards Philip K. Dick. Okay. Yeah. I guess my biggest influences would be like Hyland, like Robert Hyland. I really love Stranger in a Strange Land and Starship Troopers. They're some of my favorite. I've read some of the other like classics and like Asimov and stuff like that, but I've always really loved Hyland. Hyland has like a really positive view on humanity and I guess Martians. So I like those a lot. Are there any writers on the scene currently that you look to as an influence or even, want to shout out because they're doing great work? Oh, Will White. Really love Will Wright's stuff. I guess Matt Dinniman is totally killing it with his lit RPG. He's a real inspiration. Love that guy. I really like Anne Bishop, but I guess she's kind of an older one now, but she's still writing. She's still alive and writing, so. Still counts. Right, yeah. Yeah, I would say those guys definitely.
Love those guys.
What do you think is maybe the cornerstone? Maybe the building blocks of your style specifically. What sets you apart from other people touching on the genres that you are?
I want to jokingly answer body horror, but um, I guess what I really really love is really strong character driven narratives that have really bombastic endings, like really cool, clever uses of powers or abilities, confrontations with villains where you're not entirely sure who exactly is going to win, but it's just cool. Like what happens, you're on the edge of your seat. You got to see this. I really love fast paced stuff. I'm not a big fan of super duper mired down in a ton of lore, depression, inner angst, those types of things. I like the story to. I guess I really like when readers tell me they just read my whole book in a single evening, because they couldn't put it down and they just wanted to see what was happening, and every chapter was great, and they just, they promised themselves one more chapter, but then they're just going to read the next one. I specifically attempt to write my books like that, where it's a little difficult to put down and it reads really fast. As a reader, I hate when I get bogged down in like either too much description or something that I almost want to skip the chapter for.
You just want action and dialogue.
Not just action and dialogue. I need something like to stimulate my mind, really, because I love sometimes scenes where people are like training or like powering up, but it's interesting because they're working through their magical powers and thinking of interesting ways to do it. And then I'm thinking like, whoa, what if I had those magical powers? What would I be doing? Wow. Things like that. Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings. I like Lord of the Rings, but I swear to God, that man had like a chapter dedicated to a hill and a tree on top of a hill. And it was just description of the grass, what the tree looked like, how the wind was playing with the blades of grass, and I'm just like, dude, we can move on from the hill and the tree. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got it. I got a picture. Let's go. And he's like, no, we're going to sit here and we're going to look at that tree. And, he was holding me hostage basically for that whole chapter. And I'm just like, oh, geez. And I love Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy writes amazing books. But Jesus Christ, man, do you have to describe everything that happens on a boat? Now I know everything about the rigging and the sails and how much capacity the boat can hold, what the buoyancy is. I don't know if I need all that information. You know what I'm saying? Like, why was a boat manual also in this technical thriller novel? It's stuff like that. I guess I'm not a big fan of those sections.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So today we are recording this session on June 27th, a Saturday. You are presently at LibertyCon in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I believe.
Yeah.
How has it gone? You're there for 2 or 3 days and you showed me a very busy schedule.
Yeah, it's going great. Yeah, I have lots to do, but it's very busy.
Let's talk about your books, stuff you got coming out. The day after this releases, we have a superhero called Doberman.
That's a fun one. It's a superhero lit RPG. Not the hottest genre ever, but I super love superheroes in general. So there's a lot of references to comic books, comic book characters. The main character is like cursed by Anubis, so he can transform to look like Anubis, like a jackal-headed individual. And that's basically his costume in this universe. Like, he transforms, he looks like Anubis. Nobody can tell who he is because, again, he looks like a jackal-headed man. However, all the thugs on the street don't really know what a jackal is, so they assume he's a Doberman, and they keep calling him Doberman, even though he's supposedly Anubis.
Mistaken identity.
Yeah, that's the joke. That's the title of the novel, is A Superhero Called Doberman, because that's not really who he is, so I thought that was funny. I also find it funny when I sometimes post the cover on the internet. A lot of people in the comment section will be like, that's not a Doberman, that's clearly Anubis.
Wait till you get into the story.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, that's the joke. Anyway, so he has these death powers. Like he has the ability to rot stuff and cause entropy, and he can sense when people are close to death and all this other kind of fun stuff. It's lit RPG, so he actually gets powers and he gets to upgrade himself in various different ways. That's really fun. He needs to stay away from people though because he fears that his curse causes other people who are around him to die. So he doesn't really have any friends and he's not hanging out with any family at the beginning of the novel, but he lives next door to this girl, and this girl keeps getting in trouble because some people are trying to kidnap her. So he gets dragged into some problems around town and has to deal with these evil supervillains. It's pretty cool. I don't want to give too much of the story away, but that's basically it.
Right. It's book 1 too, as well.
Yeah, so it's a good time.
So without necessarily giving away the farm on this, you've got some kind of arc that you're going to take readers on.
It's at least 3 books. It is an indie publication for the ebook and the physical. My husband and I are the ones putting it out, but we sold the audiobook rights to Tantor, so they're handling the audio side of things.
Now you also have a second title coming out within not the same calendar month, but effectively within a month of the other one as well. The Last Rift Dragon. Tell us about that.
The Superhero Called Doberman was a co-written thing with my husband. He primarily did the writing, but I was the one who did the outlining and did all the editing and did a lot of changes later. He super duper loves lit RPG, and so he was excited to do the system for that. And I wrote The Last Rift Dragon, and that's a progression fantasy where the main character, the people in the universe bond with dragons and get powers based on the type of dragon that they bond with. That was a really fun one. It's in a story where the dragons are going extinct, so the main character wants to bond with one of these very, very last dragons and, kind of turn this around. There's a lot of twists. I guess I really love this story because I don't think a lot of people will see what's coming, if that makes any sense. I'm excited for people to get their hands on this one. The audio is done by Luke Daniels, who's a legendary dude. It's not up for pre-order yet, but it should be up for pre-order start of July, and I'm really hyped for it.
Yeah, very cool. How many books are you typically turning out in a year?
I want to say 4 to 6. I do a lot of stuff where I write the books ahead of time, and then they come out much later. So, for instance, the Doberman and Last Rift Dragon have both been done for a while, and I have a book coming out in August called 1/5 Dragon. That was finished last year.
You're a machine.
Yeah, I do this full time. This is the only thing I do. So, if you've got 8 hours a day dedicated to writing, you can get a lot of writing done. And so I try to complete a lot of these things, get it all nice and set up so that, you can do stuff like have simultaneous release for your physicals and your audios and all that other kind of, and you can plan it around, where we have it, or I'm trying to plan it so that some of these releases come out at big events. So Lit RPG Con comes out in July. So we wanted our Superhero Lit RPG to come out just a couple weeks before that so that we could pimp it to, to people and be like, whoa, look, our Lit RPG just came out at Lit RPG Con, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Coordinating.
Yeah, you got it. That's it.
I feel like 4 to 6 books is incredibly impressive, even if you are working on this stuff in tandem or even in advance and then kind of making sure that you have all of the formats available, first day and everything. It's still a lot of work, even if you're doing it 8 hours a day. There's lots of authors that aren't producing it at that rate that are, pretty good. I think they're pretty good authors.
I don't know, man. Some of my peers put me to shame. Fucking Seth Ring over here has a author fucking course that he sells where he talks about how he writes 11 books a year and how he's just a fucking he's a machine, and I'm like, oh, okay, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
that's ripping, right?
yeah, that's insane. That's an insane output. I know Rick Parlow also writes like 11 to 12 books a year. He's also crazy. There are some guys who seriously have the output. I think 4 to 6 books is probably my upper limit because I totally slowed down after I had my little BB. But I just like writing, so it's a lot of fun. I like doing it. I can't wait for people to read the Doberman, and I can't wait for people to read The Last Rift Dragon. I'm just excited for these things.
Are there any things that we have not yet talked about that you would like to, or that you want people to know?
I'm a big fan of Pokemon, and I have a lot of my series. 2 of my series are based off of are inspired from Pokemon, which are my Arcanist books, like the Frith Chronicles and the Astro Academy. And if people are really into that, I feel like you should go check those out because those are completed series of mine, and they're fun, and they're also progression fantasy. And who doesn't like Pokemon? Communists.
I did Pokemon Go a little bit when that came out. That was pretty cool.
Interview over. I'm joking.
Wait, you didn't like Pokemon Go?
No, I didn't like Pokemon Go. I'm so sorry.
Oh, geez.
But it's fine. It's fine. I like it conceptually, and I like that it got people walking. That's cool. Walking is cool.
What's the conceptual aspect of it that you like?
Of Pokemon?
Of Pokemon Go?
Oh, that I don't like or that I do like?
That you do.
I like that it gets you walking and that it's cute that the Pokemon are around. That's cool.
All right. Well, Shami, this has gone well, and I do appreciate you taking the time. This was very 11th hour. We were able to put this together and to basically get it in the middle of your LibertyCon visit. So I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being flexible and working around my wacky schedule. And
you're busy.
Time's changing randomly because I didn't realize I had a 2-hour panel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's all good.
Well, I super appreciate you, man. Legitimately.